Another day, another Weezer review. This time around, it's Weezer's second season's EP entitled Summer. Going by the description, this was the one of the four season's EPs that I was the most looking forward to, as it was described as crunchy Beach Boys or classic Blue Album era Weezer. And after hearing that, I think I have confidence in saying that Rivers has no idea what that sounds like, as there's only one song on here that maybe gets anywhere close to that realm, but we'll get to that. And while I was still somewhat excited going into this, I had my first doubts about it when I saw who was producing it. Originally, it sounded like they were going to have Jake Sinclair produce all the season's EPs, and he produced two of Weezer's all-time best albums, the White Album and OK Human. So I had a lot of hope going into it. He did produce, or he might have co-produced, I'm not sure, but he had a production role in the first season's EP, the spring one, and it sounded pretty good. But this time around, it was produced by a guy named Robopop. And looking at his discography, there's nothing that's remotely close to what classic Weezer sounds like. So what I originally thought was going to be another White Album is now looking more like another Pacific Daydream. But, you know, I was just going to cross my fingers and hope that it sounds good, even though this new producer is coming in. And after listening to the project, I think the production does play a large role in it. While on the instrumental side of things, I think it absolutely could have been worse. It still is structured very much like a rocky Weezer album, but the recording sounds not good. Aside from the wall of sound that's constantly hitting you, the most offensive production element here is the drums. Not only is the sound of the drums, particularly the snare, just grating to listen to, but they don't sound authentic at all. They sound like someone took like a Roland keyboard and put some drum tracks over these songs. And there's even a moment on the record that increases my curiosity as to whether or not these actually are real drums, because at one moment Rivers says something like, my drummer's playing offbeat, and you would expect them to do some sort of weird fill or something, but it's just the same static beat. But yeah, the drums really take me out of it. It's almost like the Everything Will Be Alright in the End era demos, where Rivers just kind of recorded guitars over a drum track that he put together himself, which I'm hoping isn't the case here, but it's so hard to tell because of how bad the drums sound. Anyways, getting into the actual tracks, the album opens up, or EP, whatever, I don't even know what it's considered considering its 7-song length, but it opens up with a song called Lawn Chair, and it's a pretty good opener. It's very melodic and bombastic. It throws a lot of things at you. Something that's a little off about this song and another track is that they use like this classical instrumentation akin to sort of what they were doing on OK Human, but except this time it sounds a lot more synthetic, and it probably is. So it's not as hard hitting, but it's whatever. Once the guitars actually come in and start doing other cool Weezer Everything Will Be Alright in the End era melodies and all the cool drum hits, that's like, you know, classic Weezer right there. But right away we get these awkward lyrics about some sort of weird angel concept. And while I'm not always against Rivers' concepts, I feel like something like S.A. Homo works a lot better than whatever this is, because things like S.A. Homo and Songs from the Black Hole, they kind of borrow a lot of real life situations and speak from a real position rather than just singing about these made up stories. And usually I'm not one to criticize lyrics too much. I'm not really, you know, I don't listen to the lyrics that much when I'm listening to music. I'm more about the melody and, you know, the music itself. But these lyrics are just not it, man. And Rivers recently seems to have somewhat of a peak interest in classical music, as he seems to like to borrow a lot of classical music passages lately and sort of do like the rock treatment to them, which is fine, but it's a little gimmicky. What's that? I did that on Zerwi too? Oh shit. Never mind. Forget that. Then going into the second track, the first single track, Records. This one's just an immediate skip for me. It sounds like a song written for Black that has post 2010 Fall Out Boy production. And while I don't absolutely hate it as much as I dislike some of Weezer's other really poppy singles like this, it's just I have no interest in re-listening to it, and I just skip it every single time. Then the album goes to a high point with the song Blue Like Jazz, with a very riffy verse that sounds straight out of the Maladroit era, except it'd be like an actually good Maladroit song as opposed to an okay one. And the very dark tone verse goes into a melodic chorus, which is very much akin to the melodies of, say, Pinkerton or White Album style Weezer. Just great guitar harmonies and vocal melodies all around. This is one that I think is worth coming back to. Unfortunately, the project then goes into a song that I think is one that's also pretty skippable. The Opposite of Me, just nothing too bad, just very clean cut. Kind of sounds like it belongs in like a commercial for a 2000s Pixar film or something. What's the good of being good? The next song is another highlight for me, especially on the second half of the song. It has this really anthemic chorus, and it goes into what I think is the best bridge on the album, which is very akin to, White Album style. The classic build-up and guitar harmonies into a very powerful chorus. And then that finishes off with a very anthemic guitar solo. But once again, I think the production really hinders the songwriting here and what they were trying to go for. While I want this to feel very big and bombastic and uplifting, it just feels kind of crushed. Then it goes into Cuomoville, which by the name sounds like it would be really shitty, but it's actually a pretty good song. Earlier I said there was one song that somewhat resembles what Rivers originally described the project as, and that was this song. I really like the melody, especially on the verses. It's very sweet sounding, and this is like, again, very akin to White Album Weezer. I think the chorus could be a little bit better, but it's fine. But all this being said, the bridge on this song is the worst part of the album easily for me. It's just so out of place, and whenever I hear it, all I could think about is Rivers with a stupid Kubrick stare on his face going back and forth like a fucking snake or something.
Oh, I'm gonna get you.
And then the album closes on So Long and Good Night, or is that, no, that's a My Chemical Romance song. Thank You and Good Night it finishes on. And yeah, I think this is a decent closer. It's catchy. I appreciate all the different changes in it. I think that this song is kind of what I wish Van Weezer was more of, especially on the very last section of the song. It sounds directly out of a Motley Crue album. And then it finishes. So while I think this album overall tries to be very bombastic and anthemic and ambitious, the production really brings it down, and it really does almost sound like a Rivers Cuomo solo project because of this. I mean, the lyrics, the production, the fact that the drums don't even sound real. I mean, is the band even on this? Like, did Rivers just send all the different parts that he recorded to the producer, and then the producer mixed them, and then he was like, hey, here, band, here you go, here's some new songs we're gonna learn how to play. I mean, is Weezer even having fun anymore? Is it just the Rivers Cuomo band? I don't know. I mean, Scott, in an interview from not that long ago, said, like right before I think OK Human came out, he said like he said he hasn't had fun making a Weezer album since Everything Will Be Alright in the end. And Pat is sitting out of this European tour for whatever reason. Like, who knows what's going on there? I mean, I'm sure it's personal stuff, but who knows? And all of this on top of the fact that this project seems like super rushed. I mean, Rivers literally wasn't even sure if his label had greenlit this whole Seasons project after the band had already officially announced it, and he's been very open about the process and everything that's going through it, and it's very quick. Like, this could be the beginning of a very dark era for Weezer, and I'm just crossing my fingers that we're gonna get something as good as the White Album or as good as OK Human again, but it's just so hard to tell these days. So yeah, this album was alright. It definitely had some low points, it had some high points, but it's not one that I'm all too excited about, and I really wish I was, considering how this thing was described, and I was really excited for this one, and unfortunately I was pretty disappointed. I'd give it like a strong 5.